Yes. Well, I can barely hear you. I can't see you. Yeah, and I cannot see you. Just can Hello? There is there a breakfast, going on? And so when will the program start? Alright. Should I go ahead and start, Steve? Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Well, good morning. I can't see you, but, the audience this morning, but I'm hoping that you can see and hear me. And I wanna thank Steve for that, kind introduction and all the work that he's done to help bring this organization together. And also, I'd like to thank all of you who are joining us uh, online this morning. Steve asked me to share my thoughts about Dr. Ronald V. Myers, whom we fondly call Doc, and then briefly talk about the meaning of Juneteenth. Last year, as you may know, President Joe Biden signed legislation that made Juneteenth a national holiday. Although President Biden didn't call out Dr. Ronald Myers' name at the bill signing ceremony, Doc's spirit was in the room. Doc and the organization he founded, the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, led the movement to make Juneteenth a national holiday and was instrumental in getting nearly 50 states to make Juneteenth a state observance. And as I watched the bill signing ceremony on TV last year, I thought about the thousands of miles that Doc traveled, the 25 plus years he devoted into making Juneteenth a national holiday. Although he died before this historical Juneteenth legislation was signed into law, Doc laid the groundwork for us to be commemorating record last July. I first met Doc in college at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he earned his medical degree. Even there to hear music, but you old heads know what I'm talking about. After Doc got his medical degree, he went on to practice medicine in some of Mississippi's poorest counties. And although his music and medical practice kept him extremely busy, Doc felt another calling as he became more involved in Juneteenth initiatives. In 1994, they could not shortly afterwards, national strategy. 3 hours later, we had his busy medical practice and numerous other obligations. Doc traveled throughout, make Juneteenth a state holiday with politicians, Juneteenth organizers, and Black leaders. Traveling, but feel free to use my book about Juneteenth to inform people why this day is significant in American history. And as Steve said, Doc would give a copy of my book, Juneteenth, The Celebration of Freedom, to every governor who was governor of Alaska at the time. Doc made great things possible because he combined his unwavering faith to convince 50 state legislatures and recognized this holiday that represented freedom to Blacks. Doc knew that the legacy of slavery still impacts our lives every day, and that Juneteenth's promise of freedom from slavery reminds us that every critical decision point in this country's history, when faced with the choice of integrating Blacks into the political, cultural, and economic mainstream, and the chattel enslavement of Blacks, or the choice to replace the transatlantic person when the very rather than accept Blacks, this pains their attitude about us. Race slavery, or no plan to make the transition from enslavement to freedom without roofs to consequence, died in such numbers. It also reminds us that Blacks played an extraordinary freedom. What is possible? Our ancestors still saying in the dark times. Juneteenth is now celebrated in all 50 states, and Doc, it fills my soul with joy to be able to say, this is your day. There are still powerful forces who this theory because they know it exposes white supremacy as a myth that can only side truth. It's accepted by a majority. Prevail over peace with justice. Fear and hatred still triumph over love and trust. Are the races, no matter what we do, nothing really changes? Here is where we can learn from the history they want us to ban. Blacks whites, scholars say it was the only time democratic forces were defeated in this country. By the start of the Civil War, North, regardless of our race, religious beliefs, or whom we love. 22 and become the first generation since Reconstruction to say no to maybe our last 19 and democracy. Thank you.
Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. You okay, Connie?
Very powerful. I hope he's recording it. Hi, yes. Hear me, Steve?
Yes.
Okay, let me start again. Good morning. I'm Connie Johnson in Oklahoma, and it's my privilege and pleasure to speak this morning about the Oklahoma author of the Juneteenth legislation, which inspired and served as a template for the national Juneteenth holiday. Senator Maxine Horner, former staff person to Congressman Jim Jones, and one of the two first Black women in the Oklahoma State Senate, the creator of the Jazz Hall of Fame, and the legislator for Black Wall Street, knew what she knew and what she learned as a child growing up in Tulsa. She introduced the Juneteenth holiday the Tulsa race massacre bill.
This speaker, they keep losing. And so it's just, he said, people on the big screen are sitting down for breakfast and they saw my presentation. I couldn't sit down. That's what he said. But he said, the court, it's I am so bad.
I'm not sure what to do. Yes, and I appreciate that, Steve. But the relationship between 1921 and Juneteenth is what we speak about more often because Oklahoma got word 3 years after emancipation passed. But it was also the method by which 51 all Black towns came about in Oklahoma. It was a historic capture of labor that's making it happen. Am I back? Oh, I am. Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. How's that? I believe it was 1989. It wasn't hard. There was the Democrats were in control, and she and Don Ross, Representative Ross, held leadership positions on both sides. So there wasn't a lot of, there was some initial concern about the language because it